Brothers has been in a bit of a rough state, wouldn't you say? Since the merge that happened with Warner Media and Discovery, they've been kind of struggling. The DC Extended Universe hasn't been too good, and now they're restarting it again with a brand new Superman movie being directed by James Gunn, and they canceled a whole bunch of movies and TV shows just as a tax write-off, such as the Batgirl movie and the Wile E. Coyote movie. And they also removed a bunch of their original content off of HBO Max, which was later just rebranded to Max. And one show that I really enjoyed off of there that got removed was Close Enough from the creators of regular shows. But of course, that's Warner Brothers' struggles in the TV and film media, but what about the video game media? How have they been doing? Well, clearly not too good. According to this article from Tom Ivan at VGC, Warner Bros. Is reportedly considering selling a stake in its video game business. The article continues, that's according to Financial Times sources who claim the media giant is looking to offload smaller assets in an attempt to help reverse a near 70% decline in its stock prices since Warner Media and Discovery merged in 2022. Article continues, quote, it's said to be considering offers to sell Polish broadcaster TVN or a stake in its video game arm, which is home to a dozen studios. They include Avalanche Software, who developed Hogwarts Legacy, Rocksteady, who developed Suicide Squad, TT Games, who's in charge of the LEGO games, NetherRealm, does Mortal Kombat, Monolith Productions, which does Middle-earth Shadow of War, and Warner Bros. Games Montreal, which made Gotham Knights. And before I continue, I also want to mention something else that the article says, quote, last month Warner announced that it had acquired Player First Games, the studio behind free-to-play platform fighter MultiVersus, for an undisclosed sum. So let's take a step back here for a second. Warner Bros. Had a 70% decline in its stock. Mainly, it could have been due to the massive amounts of films and TV shows that they canceled, just used as a tax write-off, and a lot of the stuff that they just wiped off of the face of the earth by removing it off of HBO Max. And again, their video games haven't been doing too well at all. Gotham Knights was mediocre at best, and Suicide Squad, don't even get me started on that. Mortal Kombat is a fun game, unless, you play it on Switch, which, God rest your soul, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. In the LEGO game that came out recently, LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, it was pretty good. I played it, I beat it, it was a fun game. And of course, can't talk about this without the big elephant in the room, Hogwarts Legacy, which was one of the biggest selling games of last year. Like, it was on every single top best-selling game for each month. Like, it was up there on the list, most of the time at number one. I don't think it ever dropped from number one, honestly, for each month. And then they acquired Player First Games, the developers of MultiVersus, which MultiVersus isn't a bad game. It's a fun little platform fighter, but I guess we'll have to see how it does long-term. And it's just, I feel like Warner Bros. Has been doing kind of good, but hasn't been doing good as well. And I feel like most of this, while they did have big misses with Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad, I feel like most of the 70% decline in its stock prices was mainly due to the merge between Warner Media and Discovery, and just how they've been handling a lot of that over the past 2-3 years of canceling a lot of stuff and just straight up not releasing stuff when it's already completed, such as, again, the Batgirl and Wile E. Coyote movie. And it's just ridiculous how they've kind of handled the situation so far. And also, I would like to mention that they said that they want to push for live service games. They want to keep doing live service games, even though they've noticed that Suicide Squad is not doing too good, and there's been reports that Rocksteady is now just a measly old support studio, which is sad that Rocksteady, the people who made the Batman Arkham games, some of the best video games of the 2010s, they're now a support studio. Rocksteady, the developers of Batman Arkham, that really just set a footprint for action games, not just superhero games, but action games. And without Batman Arkham, we wouldn't have the Spider-Man game, because it has been said by the developers that Batman Arkham was the big inspiration for the Spider-Man games on PlayStation. Article continues, quote, Warner Bros. Discovery executive J.B. Perrottet said earlier this year that the company's games business revolves around four main intellectual properties, quote, which are all billion-dollar plus businesses themselves, end quote. They are Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, DC, and Harry Potter. While last year's Harry Potter spin-off Hogwarts Legacy was 2023's best-selling game, Warner took a $200 million loss on this year's once highly anticipated Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League. Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav said last year that the company was focused on transforming its biggest franchises, quote, from largely console and PC-based with 3-4 year release schedules to include more always-on gameplay through live services, multi-platform, and free-to-play extensions, with the goal to have more players spending more time on more platforms. End quote. Which, yeah, okay, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, DC, and Harry Potter are some of their biggest IPs. Everybody knows that, and you can tell that Warner Brothers has been trying to push Mortal Kombat into more than just gaming. They released the Mortal Kombat movie a few years back, which was an alright movie, I'd say, and they're making a sequel to that as well. And like I said, Hogwarts Legacy, it mentions in the article, was 2023's best-selling game, but they lost a lot of money, $200 million to be exact, off of Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League, which shows that this is not what people want. This isn't, people don't want these games to be constantly, live service games, which live service games can be fun. Don't get me wrong. There are some live service games out there that are fun, but a lot of them just aren't fun, especially when it comes to games that put more of money ahead of fun and gameplay. And I feel like that's kind of what Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League was. And I feel like that's what a lot of Warner Brothers live service games are going to be until they realize that they are fucking badly. And it's sad because Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League had a lot of love for it. You could tell the developers had a lot of love for DC as a whole, but they couldn't really make Suicide Squad what they wanted it to be. It had to be what Warner Brothers wanted it to be, and that was, of course, a live shoot service, looter shooter, just absolutely boring and repetitive gameplay. And I wonder how long it's going to take for Warner Brothers to really realize that this isn't what the fans want. This isn't what people want. People want games that actually had a lot of love put into them, and I feel like that's also what Hogwarts Legacy was. Hogwarts Legacy was a game that you could tell was being made by people that really loved the Harry Potter franchise and really wanted it to be something better. And I feel like Hogwarts Legacy really did deliver on that from what I've heard. I only played like a little bit of it as like a little demo, but from what I've heard from people who've actually played Hogwarts Legacy, it's not a bad game. And I mean, that shows. It was 2023's best-selling game. And I don't see why Warner Brothers won't look at the success of Hogwarts Legacy and the failure of Suicide Squad and go like, okay, which is the better option? I don't understand why they decided to go for the Suicide Squad option, especially after they lost $200 million from that. But greedy companies will always be greedy companies, and that's just how it will always be. That's all how it will always be in the video game industry. That's how it will always be in any type of industry. When it comes to video games, we've been dealing with greedy companies for years. EA, Activision, Ubisoft. A lot of these companies have just been absolutely greedy and have thrown ads in our games and charged us for pay-to-win microtransactions and stuff like that. And I feel like Warner Bros. Is trying to become that, and it's sad because Warner Brothers really could be something more with the IP that they have a hold of. I mean, they have access to the entirety of the DC universe. They have access to the Harry Potter universe, Game of Thrones, and Mortal Kombat, which they consider are their biggest properties, their biggest IP. And they're right. Everybody knows Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, DC, and Harry Potter. They're big. Everybody knows what those are. But they are going about taking these IPs and putting them into video games so wrong. And sometimes they get a hit, like with Hogwarts Legacy, but most of the time you get Gotham Knights, you get Suicide Squad, and it's just, they need to stop. And they need to really try to make good games instead of trying to push for live service games. There's, like I said, there's nothing wrong with live service games if done right. I've mentioned this before. Helldivers 2, perfect live service game. Yeah, there was that whole debacle with Sony and trying to restrict people from playing it unless you have a PlayStation Network account. But I just feel that a lot of live service games aren't that good because most of them are just trying to chase the success of Fortnite, Apex, and so on. But I guess we'll have to see if Warner Brothers ever changes their mind. Probably not. They'll probably keep trying to push out a bunch of live service games. Probably get a Harry Potter live service game or, some sort of like Game of Thrones live service game or whatever. But, we'll see how it is. And again, they now own Multiverses, and we'll see how Multiverses goes. It's a pretty solid game, but I don't know how well it'll hold up in the long term. But I guess we'll have to see. Anyways, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about Warner Brothers and just this whole situation in general down in the comments below. And I'll catch you all next time.